Alrighty.
So otherwise,
Morning.
we're all here. I guess we're waiting on Lee, but otherwise the rest of us are here
Now,
to go.
Vicky's perspective is she just an audio participant, or can we set it up that if she wants clarification some way, somehow or along the way, that she can ask for?
All of them have the right to, if they want to ask a question, they put up their hand or send a message, and I can promote them and allow them to talk.
Okay.
And I just ask your permission before I do it. So.
Right. Well, I think is important that people have the opportunity to communicate with us if they need to.
Yeah, we do actually have had a few more people sign on, so it looks like we got 4 people watching today. It'll be a little more than usual, but that's good.
That's excellent. Excellent.
We're at 9:30 if you're ready to go.
Okay. With that, certainly I do not have my laptop yet, so I'm going to have to rely on Jana a little bit here to keep us on track. So we'll call the meeting to order, and first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. And could I have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Rowe, seconded by Leatham. All in favor? And that is carried. Certainly a reminder to disclose any pecuniary interest as it arises. First item up is a delegation, and we have Inspector Butler from the Elgin County OPP, acting detachment commander. Certainly welcome, Michael, to our West Elgin Council meeting. It's always good to have the opportunity to have an open conversation with the police, and that's certainly what makes policing in our community better if we keep the communication going. So with that, I will, and council's blessing, I will turn the meeting over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to members of council for inviting me to participate in the meeting. As the mayor stated, we do experience a really good, strong relationship with the West Elgin community, and any chance or opportunity we get to speak, we certainly appreciate that opportunity, and we are always available, certainly, and to any requests that you have out in the West. I'd like to cover a couple of things, and I know specifically I'll speak to property crimes. I know that was an interest, but I'll just go through a couple of points before I get to that with your indulgence. So currently, just to give you an update, certainly with the status of things related to COVID and how things are operating here at the Elgin County OPD detachment. So we're currently 100% operational. There's no difference in our day-to-day frontline policing operations. So officers are out on patrol, responding to calls for service, and doing proactive work as well. So the only change in that regard that we have in how we're at our business office here at the detachment on John Wise Line is closed to the public unless you have an appointment or you're here to report a crime, and you're certainly COVID screened to come in the building. So from a business perspective, the office is closed to the general public. Along with that, criminal record checks. We are only conducting criminal record checks for essential workers or employment only at this time. So if someone needs a criminal record check for employment that is deemed essential, we are doing those checks. Certainly everything is valued on a one-off basis at this point. So that's where we stand with those. Certainly our operating position at this time. To give you a little bit of the history of COVID-related calls in West Elgin specifically. So I took a little scan of the last 120 days in West Elgin specifically, and we only have 12 calls for service that are related to COVID. And I've read through each one of those, and generally speaking, they involve instances where someone has reported that somebody wasn't wearing a mask, which resulted in us having an officer either call or attend that location and educate that person on their requirements to do so. So as a result of those calls, there have been no charges laid in any of those circumstances. So what I would suggest in that is the people of West Elgin are being very compliant and being good neighbors and supportive of each other, and we're seeing very little COVID-related calls for service out in West Elgin at this time, which is nice to see. I'll just talk a little bit about general calls for service before I specifically get into property crimes that you'd asked to talk about. So I did send a something through to Jana there, which covers property crimes. I'm just going to reference some other stats that you won't have in front of you. Our overall calls for service in West Elgin over the last 5 years have ranged somewhere around 1,000 calls for service. We saw a slight decrease last year in overall calls for service. Excuse me. But we saw that across the entire county for a couple of reasons, and I'll speak to one specifically. But COVID did impact our calls for service over the year because of the lockdown. We didn't have as many people traveling the roads. We didn't have as many collisions. Some of our property crimes initially in the beginning of the year were low because people were home, and we didn't have break and enters because people were home in their houses. So we see a slight change in those stats as a result of COVID in general. One thing I want to point you to, I mean, I know this is important to council, and we certainly went through a large exercise with Malahide recently on the cost of policing. As I look at this other chart that I have that you don't have in front of you, it's an electronic document, it gives the calls for service over the last 5 years. And the #1 call for service that we have in the municipality of West Elgin are 911 hang-up calls. So over the last 5 years, the number of calls in total is about 520 in total. And if you take a year-to-year look at those, in 2019, we responded to 125 911 hang-up calls. Those are, and for your purposes, that speak to another thing, are billable calls on your policing annual billing statement. Those are calls that you get billed for, and it's 2 officers that attend for those calls. So the OVP is undertaking a program to reduce our response to 911 calls. As a result of that, we only responded to 20 911 calls in 2020. And again, that's through our communication center. They're able to do the work ahead of time to determine that. As we know, we've all probably done it. Pocket dials are probably the biggest issue with cell phones, dialing 911. So we've seen a great reduction in those, what I would call reactive calls for service, which allows our officers to then do more proactive work in the community. And I'll speak to that. And again, if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to ask that question. So that's probably one of the biggest areas that we've seen the drop. So I'll jump into property crimes, which are the stats that were sent to you.
Just stopping there, Mike, is there an ability to put a dollar figure on what we were paying for those advertent 911 calls? Certainly sometimes that has more impact than just a number of calls.
Yeah, if you actually look in the billing statement that was provided at the end of for 2020 to the municipality, it is reflected in that. So how the billing model works for the OPP is, if there are, and I'll just use a simple figure, if there are 1 million 911 calls for service in the province, you pay the share of what you actually have. So it's based on the number of households, the billing model percentage. So you pay your portion of what that total bill would be for those calls. And again, it's directly reflected in your billing if there's a reduction. Now, because we use a 5-year billing model average, sometimes it takes a while to see that that change on your billing model. So we did have a large increase, and hopefully that will continue for this year. So you'll see that start to impact your overall calls for service billing over the next few years as that average number reduces. It's hard to put an actual dollar figure on what that call would cost. I don't know if that answers the question, Mayor. Or...
That's enough for now. Bonnie, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what Inspector Butler just said. So of those 1 million calls across the province to the OPP, are you saying that we are billed a fraction of that based on our population?
It's a bit more complicated than that. It's literally based on the calls for service that your municipality has, and then they take that 1 million calls, and that's where they figure out, okay, the average time spent on a 911 call is, and again, I'll just give you a figure, 30 minutes. So then you're billed based on the average time across the province for those calls for service. So it's it's not, you're not paying anyone else's portion, you're only paying yours, but the value that's placed on those calls is averaged out across. So how long does it take to do a 911 call? It's a provincial average versus what's the time in West Elgin.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you.
And Sergeant Butler, it's my understanding that even an accidental 911 call is investigated by the OPP to ascertain whether it's legit or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's historically where we were responding to calls, and it is a 2-officer call. And you can imagine when we get a 911 call or a 911 hang-up call, we don't know what's on the other end of that line. So it was a 2-officer response. Now through our communication center, they're able to establish who owns the phone. They're able to make contact with people without sending a police officer. So those calls now aren't getting dispatched to an officer. Where we can't establish who owns the phone or where that phone is, certainly with GPS, we can pinpoint phones pretty accurately now. There's really no need for a police officer to attend, so those calls don't even make it to our officers on the front line. We still respond to 911 calls where we can't determine that someone's online and everything is okay. And if we're not certain, we'll send the officers anyways.
So we have moved the ball forward quite a little bit.
We're catching up with technology, and I think the more education that we have with people about pocket dials and the information that's available from cell phones obviously does assist from a communication standpoint for us.
Sir, I think Councillor Cameron had a question.
Okay,
Mayor,
there she is. Good morning. Go ahead, Angela.
Oh,
I
I think
just asked my question, Mr. Mayor.
you asked her question, she said.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Any more questions on that part? Mike, you can continue on then.
Good. So again, that's just overall our intent is to reduce the billable calls for service for you. I mean, that's one of my jobs as a detachment commander is where's our high level calls and how can we address that for the community, which obviously speaks to community safety, but that's something that we continually work on. And I'll speak about something else that we're trying to do this coming year to reduce other calls for service. So getting into property crime specifically, and these are some of the stats that I did share with you there.
Okay,
It comes off of
sorry, sir, just going to interrupt, just so everyone knows. I have sent them to you if you can't see the screen, but I'm going to start sharing the screen. So if you will, 2 of our counselors are on rural Wi-Fi and they can't always see the shared screen. So I just want everyone to know I did send it out as well. So I'm going to share it now. There we go.
Perfect. So essentially, we were able to gather all of our calls for service stats in what I would call a dashboard, and that's what this document represents to you. So it's a live document that I can actually manipulate here behind the scenes, but that first page shows you the 5-year totals for property-related crime, and I know that that's one of the reasons that that council had asked to speak with me. That you'll see on that first page of that report that are property crimes, those numbers that you see at the top. So if you take that first column, sorry, I got to put my glasses on so I can see it here. When you look at theft under 5,000 on that top left column, that shows 73 total for a 5-year span. So that's not a 1-year span. That gives you the overall crime trends for 5 years. That second chart that you're looking at will show you the 2020 stats. So how our 5-year totals stack up against our numbers that we saw in 2020. And you'll see that the pattern kind of stays the same in regards to where our peak calls are. So theft unders and what that means is anything that's stolen that's under $5,000. So from the criminal code standpoint, you can be charged with theft under $5,000 or theft over $5,000. So that just strictly based on what the value of what the item stolen. So theft under, and then theft over. It then gets into frauds, where you see last year we had 9 break and enters and 11 mischiefs. And mischiefs are damage to property. So if someone interferes with someone else's property or damages something, that's classified as a mischief problem. So from an analytic standpoint, the numbers are consistent in my view, that we didn't see a spike. If anything, a slight decrease in some areas. I know you can't see this, but if I tell you in 2019, we had 20 break and enters, and in 2020, we had 13. I don't know, you can't see that on your document because it's kind of a live stat thing that I have here. So a slight decrease in the break and enters. And I know council are aware that we did have a rash involving funeral break and enters not too long ago, in 2020, where people were breaking into homes while people were at funerals, and we were able to make extensive arrests in that. But I know the biggest concern lately has been theft of vehicles and theft from vehicles. The numbers, again, while not alarming, they're in line with previous years. So, and they do follow trends. As we look at our stats, the colder months tend to be when we see a spike in thefts from vehicles, and theft of motor vehicles. There is just a trend over the last 5 years where that is a normal trend. But I can tell you, as a 30-year police officer, a lot of this hinges on who's in custody and who's in jail, and who kind of is working crime in that area. So as a result of this, what I would describe as an uptick in property crime, our community street crime unit. So that's a unit that we have here of detective constables, and they're part of a joint team with Middlesex OPP. So it's a team of 6 detectives, and they follow up this property crime for us. That's their main job. It's also linked into low-level street drugs, because usually they go hand in hand. The property crime tends to feed historically tends to feed drug problems and drug issues. So they engaged with this. They were able to identify suspects in regards to our recent rash. And I know that I had sent Jana, or hopefully through the portal, you had received a media release on our results of what the street crimes unit. So basically, since November 2020, we saw this uptick in thefts from vehicles and theft from motor vehicles. And in January 8th, with the assistance of London Police and our joint crime units, search warrants were executed, and a large amount of property was recovered from our specific property crimes in the West End. So a great success as far as I'm concerned. One of the biggest things that we benefit from nowadays certainly is technology and video cameras. And I know we had some communication earlier about how can the community best address these types of crime in the community. And one of the biggest assistance that we have currently in policing is that people tend to now have video cameras. So from that, we'll be able to identify suspects and conduct investigations to locate those people and lay charges. And because uniquely to the west part of the county, as we find a lot of times if there's a vehicle theft or theft from someone's property in the west, they tend to stop at the service center on the 401, which is great for us because there's a lot of cameras there, and we're able to identify those people in stolen vehicles or using stolen credit cards that they've taken from vehicles. So that does assist us greatly involved in the investigation in those events. Prior to COVID, we would have engaged highly in a preventative and proactive crime prevention measures, such as our Lock It and Lose It campaign, where officers would have actually gone around at night themselves looking for unlocked vehicles or things that were there for the taking. And I know you won't be able to see this, but this is kind of the brochure. We'd go door to door, we'd check cars, we'd leave this there to remind people that, hey, the police came by in the middle of the night and your vehicle was unlocked, the keys were inside, or there were other valuables inside. And essentially, most of these theft of vehicles and theft from vehicles are crimes of opportunity. I mean, I live in St. Thomas myself, and I know it's a regular occurrence there. And it's vehicles that are left unlocked with valuables inside that become the target. If your vehicle is locked, generally they move on. And I say this carefully, as my mother and father-in-law farm. We see a lot of it in the rural farming communities where vehicles are left running or keys are left in the vehicle out of convenience while you're certainly conducting your farming business. So I know historically that has kind of been there. So what I would suggest or recommend, and I would certainly leave this up to the mayor and council, is we have this Lock It or Lose It information that I'd be willing to share in bulk with the municipality. If you wanted to send it out in a mailing tax bill, that'd be one way to get it out, or just to remind people to do those things. And I know we have done a pretty active media campaign to educate the public on securing their vehicles as well. So we could certainly obtain enough of those that you could put them out in a mailing if you were interested. It's just difficult right now. We can't go door to door with COVID. It's not ideal for those. And we would engage our auxiliary members to do that normally, who are kind of stood down because of COVID as well. Any questions specific to property crime at all?
Bonnie, go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't able to really ascertain the answer to this question on your stats, but I will look at those a little bit more thoroughly. But I guess my question is, are we worse off in our municipality right now than others locally in terms of numbers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say worse off. Interesting. I mean, it's something that we evaluate every day. And once we made these arrests initially in January, we saw a decrease in the calls for service and incidents in the west part of the county. But I can tell you that now we're seeing a bit of a spike in the more of the Southwold Central Elgin area. And again, to be honest, it's where the criminal element is working out of that causes the issue. I think we identified the people who are responsible out in the west. But I would suggest no, that the stats don't show that you're being specifically targeted. And sometimes with the west end of the county, we do have some people travel over from the Chatham-Kent area from their criminal element to engage in those things. And I know there was some arrest on their side of that. So I wouldn't say no. To answer your question, there isn't, you're not being hit any more than anyone else is at this point. But again, the numbers are in line with our usual years. So I wouldn't spike.
Okay, and thank you. The other part of my question was in terms of what we could do to encourage our citizens to support the OPP in their efforts. And I personally see posts on social media outlets that really likely aren't being reported to the police. They're just kind of reporting it to one another. So I think that is perhaps one of the areas that we could to work on. But I like the idea of your lock it or lose it brochures too. I think those are certainly something that I would be in support of circulating out too. So thank you for your presentation.
I would add to that. We also have online reporting. So if people are willing to report those crimes, they would fit under the categories that they could actually go online and just report it themselves just through the opp.ca website. So you can go online and report those things. So that's something that you may be able to also help get the message out. So we do have accurate stats. And I know as council members and mayor that sometimes you get the call 3 or 4 days later after from a constituent. It's always nice to get that information in a timely manner. We're better equipped to address those calls for service.
Sure.
Thank you for your presentation. Just before COVID, we used to have an active community policing in West Elgin and had for just over 25 years. And we was really upgrading what we had, and we was getting the youth from the schools interested and trying to get the community as a whole to get interested so we could sort of look after ourselves a little better, if you know what I mean. Everybody be aware, and unfortunately, when COVID come, that finished. So we didn't meet with the constable or anything like that anymore. But hopefully, when this is all finished, community policing will come back, and we get the youth engaged from the schools, and we're back stronger than ever. And it may help this situation out a little bit. Thank you.
I agree, and I just to add to that, we have stood down all of our community policing committees across the entire county obviously for safety reasons due to COVID, but we will wholeheartedly engage in those once we're able to, which will also include our community service officer going back to West Elgin Secondary School and reestablishing those relationships with the students and staff of the school.
Thank you.
Janet, do we on our website have a OPP page that is, actively up, kept up to date, and there's information flowing from the OPP through our website to our residents. Information, tips, situations they should be aware of.
Our
is
web,
that on-
our website, no, I don't even have a login to the portal. So the information I get is only when Sergeant Butler emails us. However, I do follow the Western Region OPP on Facebook, and I share what I get out of there that relates to our area. And if anything is news related, I try to link it to our website, to our emergency services page. But I have no issue with, if I get that brochure from him, creating a page or putting more. There is links on our pages, like from our website to the OPP's website and things like that. But it's a link. It's not super up to date. It's just that you have to leave our website to go somewhere else. But I have no issue with doing that.
Mike, do you see a benefit in setting up an Inspector Butler page on our website that you have a portal to communicate directly with the residents of West Elgin?
We're certainly open to sharing the portal information. The OPP kind of limits me on what I can publicly post. So we're kind of limited to, Jen has spoken, our regional social media pages, our Facebook, our Twitter. Those are managed regionally. So I'm not allowed to have my own Twitter page, is what it boils down to. But I will provide, I will have Jana added to our news portal feed. So anytime that we do send out a media release, it can be sent to her to be forwarded to members of council and the mayor at that point. So we'll share more of our news releases in a timely manner in that regard.
Well, I'm also thinking more of somehow within our website that these are best practices, maybe tips from people, just to remind them to lock your vehicle, lock your doors. I mean, it goes without saying, it makes common sense, but you can't seem to tell people enough that to keep this in the back of their mind.
Yes, and a lot of that stuff is posted. Our community officer, Troy Carlson, does post a lot of local stuff on the OPP regional Twitter. So even if we can link community members to those pages, that's where they'll get that information or those feeds on a regular basis.
It's not maybe trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just being able to guide people via link from our website right to the OPP reps website.
Well,
Okay.
I agree. I think we can have a better presence for sure.
And that we can update that too to our news feed. But sorry, Councillor.
No, it's fine. Through the chair, thank you once again, Inspector Butler, for coming and giving a presentation to us. I have a couple questions where I'd find or what they would be for cyber crimes, online school bullying, and then I'm a little worried about the senior targeting. I see in the news a lot, and what's shared through the different police detachments about seniors. And I do know that some seniors have approached us and we've directed them towards the OPP for different calls, different emails, different texts that they've gotten if they text, targeting, Billy's in the one lady, I think it was a nephew was in jail or something, please send money or something like that. But I've directed them towards the OPP, but just different things like that seem to have come up that are I'd call new crimes, I guess. Where would I find information on that to pass along to people other than just directing them towards you? Maybe like an information or an educational piece.
Yep. Again, everything that I can essentially give you from a detachment level will be found on our opp.ca website. So if you can look at our crime prevention programs, our fraud buster programs, assistance for seniors, all of those links can be found on the opp.ca website. And there's certainly—
Are you finding this? Sorry, go ahead.
That can be linked on the township or the municipality's website to the opp.ca to get those resources. There's no issue with putting the link on your website.
Thank you for that. And are you finding during this time when people have been home for however many months it is now, that the kind of online targeting of seniors, and are they moved that way or no?
We have seen a slight uptick, and I can tell you even from a personal standpoint, I'm getting texts and phone calls all the day from all around the world that are clearly fraudulent phone calls. So I know it is a constant target for our seniors. So I wouldn't say that there's an uptick, but it's a continual attempt to conduct frauds for sure.
Other questions for Mike? I don't have the crime stats in front of me, Mike, but you know, we've been 10 months or so into this COVID. Has there been a dramatic uptick in domestics that have been taking place that you've had to investigate, or is it staying fairly stable too?
I would say it's stable. Some of our municipalities, and West Elgin certainly is one, has seen a spike in the last couple of years. So not necessarily specifically related to COVID, but I wouldn't suggest that there's nothing in the stats that would suggest that's the case in West Elgin. But we certainly do see a bulk of mental health calls and family-related events as we are all stuck at home. You know, it goes to the, as I said earlier, that, you know, we don't have as many break and enters because people are home. But then when you have people together in a location, then sometimes there are some problems.
Well, certainly a domestic situation, as unfortunate as they are very time-consuming for the OPP to investigate and process. And as they're doing that, they're taking frontline officers off of patrol to be able to keep an eye on other things that are going on. So it all goes hand in hand around and around we go. So as long as we're not seeing a large uptake, that's comforting.
I agree. It is comforting that there isn't a large uptake. I just have a couple other points to cover quickly, and then I can answer any other general questions if that suits, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Just one other thing that we kind of hit on, a problem from last year that we're going to continue with this year. We ran into a high number of complaints related to ATVs and their use on trails in the west end of the county, certainly in the Dutton, Dunwich, and into the West Elgin area. So this past year, we've obtained a couple of ATVs that are basically part of the OPP fleet, and we were able to conduct 70 hours of patrol out there this year and lay a few charges. And it will be our intent when the weather clears up, and hopefully as COVID numbers get better, that we may see an increase on those trails. So we will, just letting you know, that we will be out again. That's our intent this spring. So the ATV officers will be out in the west conducting patrols. It's usually on the rail lines or some of the trails in there, but our plan is to be present there again this year. Probably the thing that I'm most excited about as we move into this year, I also sit on we have our community safety and well-being plan. And one of our recent meetings, we were able to see some of the statistics for all across the county. And certainly something that I don't have to tell you about, certainly access to programs and services as you go further out from the center municipality core become difficult. Through our partners at CMHA and through the hospital, we've been able to secure funding to create what's called an MCERT team for the county. And that's a mental health crisis response team. So CMHA currently is in the process of trying to hire a clinician for us. Very much like you see in the city of St. Thomas and other counties throughout, we will now have, once we're up and running, an embedded mental health worker that we will have out with officers to attend calls. The main goal and function of this program is to get service and support to the people of the county out in the county versus having to come to the city of St. Thomas to reach most of those services. So that person will be riding along with OPP officers, attending mental health calls and providing assistance to community members. And the goal is to provide that service to the community and keep people out of the hospital when they don't need to go there. It's not about reducing the calls. For us at this point, our true goal is to get the services out to the people of Elgin County on a more efficient basis, certainly when people are in crisis. So I don't have a start date yet for that. There'll be more to follow, but that's certainly with COVID, it's a little slowed up as well. But the funding is in place. We're looking at doing some hiring, and then our officers will be trained to have that clinician out in the community. And that will be to start certainly a Monday to Friday 8 to 4 kind of position, but it allows that clinician or trained person to provide support and follow-up for people in the community. So it makes that connection, and certainly when the police aren't needed, but it's better to have that clinician there. So we look forward to getting that rolling this year. That's probably our biggest goal and the thing that we're most excited about. And subject to any questions, that's all I have.
That's certainly good news. Again, the community health and safety plan, I think, has maybe identified some of those shortfalls across the county, and it's nice that we've got a good good nucleus of people sitting around that table that I think have a good understanding of the needs of the county as a whole. So, and you being one of them, I'm certainly very happy that you're at that table. Any other questions for Mike? Yes, Bonnie.
Camera.
Oh, where do I keep losing you, Angela? You're not on my screen.
Thank you for the information, Inspector Butler. You answered one of my questions about the community health and safety. Is this a permanent position, or are you trialing the social services within the community, or what is an ongoing thing that you're doing?
The funding, and historically, it's an excellent question, because historically, I know the city of St. Thomas has had to write grant after grant, and we're not sure if the program's going to follow up the next year for those programs. This has been identified as permanent funding for these positions. So my goal, and certainly the goal of the other police services in the county, is to seek to even improve on that. So we're allocated 3 workers for the entire county. 2 of those will be in the city of St. Thomas. Then we will have that 3rd member, and that will also include the town of Elmer in the balance of the county. So they will be included in the use of the person that we receive, but it is permanent funding.
And you said it's a Monday to Friday daytime type position. Will someone be on call in the evenings and weekends should an urgent matter arise to have to call someone out? Because, like, let's be honest, mental health is not a 9 to 5 math.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I could show you the stats that probably would dictate that person should be around later than that. But we're certainly going to start with that, and it'd be nice to have that community push to have more funding and more people so we can have coverage 24/7. There will be some team elements to the city program, so we can support each other. But I think, and again, it's not finalized yet. For now, 8 to 4, we deem it best because the MCERT worker will be able to do the follow-up and engage that person during the day when they can connect them with the community services. So they may not be responding to the crisis at night, which our officers will continue to do, but more that they can engage these people for follow-up to prevent further calls for service. But I would love to see 24/7, 365 coverage myself.
And one final question. So will there be additional training provided for the officers to help in the evening when the crisis workers are not available so that they can further deal with these rather than landing them in a jail cell in the evening?
The officers are, we already receive extensive training in that regard. There won't be any additional training. However, they will benefit from having the ability to ride with these clinicians on a regular basis, so they can learn some different techniques, learn some different resources that are out there. So it will strengthen their training. But as far as the nighttime response for crisis calls specifically, the officers will use the training that they have now. And again, that is the whole goal, is that if someone's not in crisis and doesn't require to be apprehended versus arrest and taken to the hospital, then that would be our preference.
Thank you.
Bonnie, you had a question?
It was the exact same question that Councillor Cameron asked, so thank you.
And I think as this community health and safety program starts to mature, it will identify different gaps that need to be filled as we move forward with it.
I agree. I think it'll only strengthen, and I think it's a good start for us. I would suggest it's a little later than I would have liked to seen it start, but we're glad to get the ball rolling.
Okay, any other questions for Inspector Butler? I know he's probably got a busy day, a lot of things on his desk, and we need to move on. Seeing no additional questions.
Magda has a question. Magda has her hand up.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Not a question, it's just a comment. When I would like to refer to the actual cost, policing cost for 2020. We just received final reconciliation from the county. So our total cost for 2020 is $953,800. So that equals, when Inspector Butler was talking about the billing statement and cost allocated per property. So as per 2020 billing statement, it's estimated at $333.42 per property. I quickly calculated our actual cost for 2020, and I divided that cost by 3,157 properties in West Elgin. So it's costing us, our municipality, $302.12 per property every time the call is made.
The cost, so the 300, and what I have a slightly different number, but I'll say $308.03 is the billing number that I have in front of me. That is per household per year. So that's how the billing cost is broken down. It's set into two portions. One is the base cost service. So every house pays $170-something for base cost, and that covers having a detachment and police cars and police officers. Then the balance that makes up the other, again, 308 versus 302, but that's where the rest comes from, your billing portion of your statement. So per billable property, so not necessarily household either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just to add to that, so the county, the Elgin County Police Services Group averages 337 per property. So West Elgin is at, again, I have 308, but less than the balance of the townships.
Okay, anything else, Magda?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Everybody satisfied with what we've had accomplished here this morning? Well, thank you again, Mike, for coming. I think it's a good exercise that at least once a year we do need to have a sit down with our detachment commander. And certainly I want you to know that our door is always open, because I know that yours is always open. And thank you for any support that you've given us over the last year. You've worked very well with Elgin County. So with that, we will say goodbye, and we'll continue on with our meeting.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, I think next item, Jana, is the approval of the minutes.
Yes, sir.
Mover and seconder for the minutes. Moved by Cammert, seconded by Tellier. Any more discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that is carried. Any business arising from the minutes?
Doesn't look like it, sir.
Seeing none, we'll move on to staff reports. Planning, good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Your Worship.
How's everything in Aylmer?
I'm in St. Thomas, and it's a little snowy right now.
Oh, okay. You have an issue here, Seaside Waterfront draft plan approval and zoning bylaw amendment. If you want to enlighten us on that.
I can. It's just my report just provides a summary of the outcome of our public meeting that occurred in November, and providing you with an update of what's happened since then. I we've prepared a list of proposed municipal conditions for the draft plan of subdivision. These have been extensively reviewed with Nancy Pissato, manager planning at the county, with the Seaside team, and as well as with Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, and all parties are in agreement.
Very good. Is there any?
One small thing I do want to add is we do have to repeal the previous bylaw that council passed in November due to the outcome of the public meeting and the concerns that were raised by the public regarding the blocks that about Douglas Line. There was concern about how those were going to develop. Its recommendation is that we repeal the previous bylaw, replace with a new bylaw that requires a public meeting for site plan approval prior to the owner and the municipality entering into a site plan agreement.
Okay. Angela?
Angela,
Go ahead.
you're muted.
Sorry. So I noticed on Douglas Line, Heather, they have now changed the block that was in question. I don't have the original drawing from the site plan meeting between the two cottages that were there. So is that now an entrance?
It was not changed. What happened is it was never clarified at the meeting how that would be used. We have received information from Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority that's indicated we can't cross over the other blocks due to the ravine and the hazard lands. So the only way those blocks can be accessed would have to be from Douglas Line.
Do you want me to share the map, Heather?
Yes, please. That would be good.
So I'm going to share my screen. We just got it, like literally as the meeting started, got an updated map. So hold on one moment. So this is the area you're talking about right there, right, Heather?
Yes, correct. So block 12, block 13. So yes, at the public meeting in November, it wasn't clarified, what block 13 was going to be used for, but based upon comments we've received from Lower Thames on block 21, we wouldn't be able to gain access from Havens Lake crossing over block 56, 21 to get to 12. So the block 13 has to be used then for an access from Douglas Line to get into block 12.
Mm-hmm. That's the only option that's there. Certainly, I think that there's some certainly concerns from the residents and probably all the individuals on Douglas Line, the additional amount of traffic on that road, whether it's designed, whether the corner's designed, a lot of questions need to be answered, I would think, before that is a potential solution, correct?
Correct. Hence why we're requiring a public meeting prior to entering into any kind of site plan approval. So the Seaside team or whoever is the developer would have to provide a detailed site plan on how those blocks would be developed, as well as the access. It would then need to be circulated to the public as well as council, and there would be a public meeting with council and the public on it.
Caroline Baker, the planner, is
Yes.
here, and she has raised her hand and asked to speak on this. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, that's fine.
She's just coming on now. Okay, Caroline, you can speak.
Good morning. You can hear me?
Yep.
Great. Good morning, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to chat and discuss. I just wanted to add to Heather's comments on block 12. So the owner is in agreement with a full public process for the site plan. And what we envision through that process is the detailed site plan drawings would show the access, but it would also show mitigating components. So it'll show landscape plan, it'll show any fencing, and it'll show screening. And the intent through that is to demonstrate to the neighboring property owners and the owners on Douglas Street in terms of compatibility, privacy, overlook, and all those matters would be included in the site plan and fully circulated and discussed with those residents on Douglas Street. At this time, the draft plan, the application before council is to create the block. and the further screening and details and landscaping would come through the site plan application. Thank you.
Bonnie, you have a question?
Yeah, I have two or three actually, but with regard to this specific issue, so then in that specific site plan that would be brought forward for that blocks 12 and 13, would council have the option to deny those plans at that time if they did not deem them to be in the best interest of the public?
I think
For
that's
your worship, I'm not sure, Heather, if that's a question for you as the
That's a
planner
Heather.
in terms of a refusal.
Yes, sorry, that was
Sorry.
directed to Heather.
Okay, so yes, I can speak to that. So yes, so site plans are to be approved by municipal council. So yes, municipal council could refuse it. However, so site plan approval is not, so the public can't appeal site plan approvals. The only one that can appeal is the owner. So if the owner was not in agreement with the decision of council, then we'd be looking at going to the local planning appeal tribunal.
So through that site plan agreement, if there are any required upgrades to Douglas Street to be able to handle the additional traffic, that is part and parcel of the site plan, and that would be necessary before it be given?
Yes, council would ask for it as part of the site plan agreement.
Richard?
Douglas line, I was always led to believe that that house that was purchased wasn't wide enough for a road access.
It would be a private entrance, so it doesn't need to meet the 66-foot municipal road allowance requirement. It would just be a private entrance into the development.
So another way of getting a road in.
It'd be a private roadway only into the development.
Okay.
Councillor
And
Campbell has their hand up. Oh, sorry.
Angela?
Through the chair, and I'm not sure who if answers this, whether it's Lee or Heather, who is responsible for inspecting Douglas Line and the infrastructure and reporting back to council whether it can handle that kind of traffic? Is that something that Lee does and comes to us, or they do as part of their site plan?
Well, that would be Lee. So Lee would have to review. So once I receive the site plan showing how many units, Lee would need to review it and determine if we need to look at a traffic impact study, for instance, on that roadway.
Caroline also has her hand up, sir.
Okay, Caroline?
Oh, thank you, through your worship. I just wanted to add a little bit information. I'm going to backtrack to a previous question about the ability to appeal site plan. Just a note that draft plan of subdivision does not also have third-party appeal. So whether it's site plan or draft plan of subdivision, the ability isn't there on an appeal. So just wanted to provide that clarification. And the second piece, Heather is correct on block 13. That would be a condominium road that would be utilized off of Douglas Street. And I would note from a design standpoint, it is a significant reduction in infrastructure. So when we're looking at a private condominium road, typically you would have your 6-meter asphalt, and then areas on either side can be used for buffering, landscaping, fencing. So it doesn't carry the volume or necessarily the infrastructure design that a full municipal road would. So in my view as a planner, that would be a lower impact to neighboring property owners. Thank you.
Okay. Questions for him? Bonnie?
I guess the only other minor questions that I had, the bylaw that is in your report, Heather, is different from the one that's in our bylaw section of the agenda. One has a November date and one has the current date. And so I just wanted a bit of clarification there. And also I wouldn't mind a short uh, definition of what registering in phases entails.
So what happened is unfortunately, I had already prepared this report a couple of weeks ago and had attached previous bylaws. Unfortunately, something happened when I went to attach the bylaws in eScribe, they didn't attach appropriately. So my apologies to that. The clerk has the correct bylaw with the correct date. And the only difference is the dates. So my apologies to that. Second, regarding your second question, so registering in phases. So Seaside has asked to be able to register this subdivision in phases. And what that means is that, there would be a phasing registration plan. What that means is that the entire subdivision, so the entire subdivision, both sides, on the west side of Havens Lake Road as well as the east side of the Havens Lake Road, will not be registered all at once. It'll be registered in blocks, and it'll be blocks that are deemed to be appropriate for basically what would be required for the subdivision. So for instance, in the first phase of the subdivision, Seaside would have to register at the very least stormwater management and the lands to build the water treatment plant and any roadways, networks, etc., in order to be able to build infrastructure as well as the first few blocks. That phasing registration plan will need to be approved by the municipality as well as Elgin County, and it will need to ensure that it meets the requirements for building infrastructure and makes sense logically. It's just that this is a large subdivision, and this is common in larger subdivisions where the developer will just register in phases as opposed to registering it all at once.
And my last question is the list of conditions that you had attached. Is that an old list? It isn't dated, and so I wondered, some of the wording is outdated and so forth.
No, it's not. It's current.
Okay, because it refers to the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, which isn't accurate. And
okay, well, again, these are, that can be further reviewed. I will say these were reviewed extensively with Lower Thames as well as Elgin County, and that was not a comment that they brought up either, but the ministry name can definitely be changed.
Okay, is that everything for now, Bonnie?
that's it for me, thanks.
Richard?
Yeah, just one thing on my plan here. I see all these lands to be zoned, and they seem to be crisscrossing across Havens Lake Road. Is that correct? Because it doesn't show Havens Lake Road specifically.
I'm a little sorry, Richard. If you could advise me, which plan are you referring to?
Well, it shows Douglas Line. It shows all the patterns, all the lands to be zoned, which is in our. This schedule is Schedule A.
To the bylaw, it's just you can't see the words Havens Lake Road on it. It's covered up by black lines, Heather.
Okay. So it is common that zone boundaries do go into the center lines of roads. So that is common. But Havens Lake Road is on the bylaw.
Okay, so Seaside is not going to gain access to any of Havens Lake Road, are they?
Well, they do have townhouse blocks at front onto Havens Lake Road. So
Correct,
they do
but that
have
doesn't
some
give them
street
ownership.
access. Pardon, sorry?
They won't have any ownership of Havens Lake Road.
No. That is, Havens Lake Road will continue to be a municipally owned road.
Okay, it's just it's a little confusing when I look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Now, Lower Thames has reviewed this. Nancy's reviewed this at the county. You've dived into it. Has Steve Gibson reviewed this?
No, Steve hasn't, because these are municipal conditions. Steve will only be involved when it's the county preparing their conditions, and that is the next step in the process. The county will need to prepare their conditions, and then they will issue draft plan approval of the subdivision, which will be a combination of municipal and county conditions.
We did have a lawyer work on it though, correct? You had assistance? You had some assistance, correct, Heather?
No, I did not involve our solicitor. Generally, we don't need our solicitor involved in preparing municipal conditions for draft plan of subdivision.
Okay. What the county does?
The county involves their solicitor, yes. So Steve will see all these conditions.
Okay. Somebody hold up their hand, ask a question. We got dead air time here.
Angela has her hand up.
Okay, Angela.
We've involved Mr. Gibson in most of the stages of this process. Would it be advisable to have him review these conditions?
We could try. It's just in the past, I have received information from Mr. Gibson that he could have conflict because the county is the approval authority for the plan of subdivision. So from the past, he's told us that he can only be involved when it's dealing with county matters as opposed to municipal matters.
And as the municipality, do we have the opportunity to comment on the county bylaw as it moves forward?
Well, the only way we'd have an opportunity to comment is when the county issues draft plan approval. So we would have to decide. Yeah.
Sir, Caroline would like to speak again.
Yes, Caroline.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to add, so my understanding is that Heather's prepared the conditions that relate to West Elgin, and then should council decide to recommend approval of the draft plan, it's not considered approved through that recommendation. It'll then go on to the county, and Nancy, the manager of planning, and Steve Gibson, the lawyer, will go through review. Heather will be involved in that process in terms of additional conditions being added. Certainly West Elgin will be involved. And then the approval for the draft plan would rest with the county. But the legal review will occur before any approval.
Everybody satisfied with that? All right. Certainly, Carolyn, thank you for interjecting there. I think everyone on council is somewhat, or I can't say everyone, I'll speak for myself, that are a little concerned about the access off Douglas Road into the Block 13, and certainly that is something that hopefully we can work through. But as it sits right now, I think there is some concern about that. But there is remedies and methods to moving forward. So your plan is, Heather, that you put this report in front of us, and if council's satisfied with this report, then we'll deal with it when we get down to the bylaw section of our meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
We do have a resolution to receive a report, recommend approval to the County of Elgin, approval authority for the draft plan of subdivision, and then considers the repeal of the previous bylaw and replacing it with a new one, but that happens in the bylaw portion.
Okay. So that being said, to move this forward with Heather's recommendation, is there a mover and seconder for the recommendation?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask one quick question of Heather before we move forward?
Most certainly.
Heather,
Yes,
there's no way to move that access off Douglas Road to another location, right?
That is correct. That is what we understand from Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, that they wouldn't grant access to Block 12 through the other blocks due to that ravine hazard land corridor.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's triple clear in my mind that we can't get it off Douglas Road. So, okay, thank you.
Oh, Bonnie's got a question, sir.
What's that, Bonnie?
I would be willing to move the resolution as stated.
Okay, do we have a seconder for it?
Second it.
We may have lost Councillor Tellier. I can't see her, so.
No. So we do have it moved. Do we have it seconded?
So call one more time, or do you want to wait for Councillor
Well,
Tellier
we need to wait for Tressa to return here.
to return? Yeah.
See, I think we're really hung up on this this Douglas Street access. Heather, is there any having further discussions with Lower Thames on this as an alternative option? Is there any potential for something happening there?
Possibly, Your Worship. We definitely, if that is a direction that council would like to go in, I could try again. However, I can say Lower Thames has been quite clear about not wanting a crossing through those hazardous lands.
Richard, sitting on Lower Thames, do you think there's any rationale for approaching Lower Thames again on this to at least have an alternative?
I certainly think there is. And I think that's the route maybe that we should go.
Sir Caroline has her hand up again.
Caroline?
Mr. Mayor.
Through Your Worship, thank you. Apologize for keep raising my hand. I guess two pieces there. One, I could suggest if council want to consider adding a clause to the draft plan condition that the applicant work with the Conservation Authority to explore other options as one avenue to address those concerns. I would note, looking at the draft plan, in addition to Conservation Authority concerns, I would gather, and I'm certainly not an engineer, so this is just looking at general topography, but the grades south of block 12 and block 13 start to become fairly significant once you get off the block. So in terms of getting an access that could be safe and appropriate sloping to meet engineering standards, that might be additional component to look at. But an alternative, if certainly council is concerned regarding the access of block 13, whether we could add a condition that Seaside work with Conservation Authority to consider alternative access options.
Okay. Heather, did you digest all of that?
Yes, I did, Your Worship. Yes, we could definitely add that condition in.
So my next question regarding the block 13, if the ravines are an issue for access, how are they how's the servicing going to happen?
The servicing would come through a small corridor. If Jana, can you put the plan back up?
Yep. Sorry, just give me one quick second. Sorry, I had closed it.
And also as well, Caroline may also be able to provide a little bit further information, but yes, once we get this plan up, I could show you a couple ways in which the servicing could come through. So we have possibly servicing could come through block 39, which is that blue area just above block 12.
The one I've got circled right here?
No, further up, north of block 12. Yep, right there.
Okay.
That's where I suspect servicing would come through.
Why can access not come through there too?
It's not wide enough, unfortunately. Because if you see this area just to the west of it, the green area, that's where we get into the hazard lands.
Right. Do we have a width of that area as compared to the block 1 off of Douglas Street?
I see a number of, I hope I'm looking at the right number. I see a number of 12 meters, which would be about what, 36 feet?
On the blue area?
Yes, up here. I see a number of 12. Yeah.
What's block 1?
You mean block 13, sir?
No, well, right down there, block, yeah, the
This area.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, block 13 would definitely be wider. Fortunately, I can't see a number. Looks like it may be 20 meters from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that looks about right. And Sir Caroline has her hand raised again.
Yes, Caroline?
Thank you. And apologize. Bill Veach from MTE is not on the call. So I was just hoping to get confirmation from him. Block 39, certainly 12 meters if we're looking at a private road could be a consideration. I just don't know in terms of grade or what they're putting underground in terms of services. But certainly if you wanted to include in the condition that that block be considered for access, certainly we can take it through and look at detailed engineering design to see if that is an option.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, I know you can't see me that well.
Yeah.
Mr. Gosnell, has Havens Lake Road, I know, wasn't always the access to the marina, am I correct? I know I'm not a lifelong member of West Elgin. What was used prior to that? Was it Douglas Road or was it a different road?
No, the original driveway that went down to the marina came off of the end of Douglas Line,
Right here.
where the golf cart path is now, was the original road.
And so it may or may not be designed to handle traffic.
I don't think it'd be usable at all now. It's a golf cart path.
You're talking about the original path, the original road down to the marina?
No, I'm just talking about when, like, the road Douglas Line itself, at one point in time in life, used to handle a fair amount of traffic. Am I correct? Because that used to be the access to the marina.
Yeah, I think that Douglas Line, I think we would probably want to see a traffic impact study on that if that was going to go forward with what they're proposing now for that block 12.
Okay, thank you.
And Sir Teresa has rejoined us.
Well, I think that there's been a few different things have come to light through this conversation. How do we move forward with that, Heather? Has Lower Thames looked very closely at that block at the end of the ravine there? Is there some modifications that can be made to allow that to be used as an access?
No, Lower Thames hasn't looked at any alternatives beyond this plan, but we could definitely, as a condition of the draft plan approval, which we can put on, request for further review of this with Lower Thames to see if there's an alternative.
What's council's pleasure? We do have a mover for the recommendation.
It's not been seconded, so we can alter still the recommendation if Bonnie is comfortable with that.
What's council's thoughts on this? Do we need to investigate this a little bit more? Maybe having Lower Thames attend the council meeting and have a roundtable discussion with them of our concerns. Certainly through our member on the Lower Thames. See if we, as we go into this, knowing that there is a viable alternative, I think would be comforting to me, because we all know that there's probably going to be some pushback on that small access into that lot. And do we know the number of houses or condos or what's going to be built on that site yet? How much traffic is going to be put through there? We don't have that traffic study done yet to determine whether it will be feasible or not.
Sir Teresa and Caroline both have their hands raised.
Through the chair, yeah, I'd be really interested to see a traffic study go on. I appreciate Mr. Gibson having a conflict with this issue and not able to give us his legal opinion. So I appreciate that. So in looking at that, I think next steps maybe would, as Mayor McPhail said, would be the Thames Conservation on a roundtable discussion, and we could bring all those issues up and talk about that. And then the traffic study when we know the exact amounts of what the exact, what we're going to have go through there for residents. So those are my next steps in my head of what we could be looking at and going towards.
Angela, you got a question?
I would like to see a traffic impact study as well, and to know if we can find out what infrastructure is involved under Douglas Road, to know what impact we're going to have on our long-term reserves and everything once the traffic starts coming on to that road.
So Caroline would like to speak as well, sir, if she can, to answer some of these
Go
questions.
ahead, Heather. Go ahead, Caroline.
Thank you. Through your worship, appreciate all of these comments as it relates to traffic and the access and alternatives. Just to guess, a bit of a reminder that the application before council today is for a draft plan of subdivision to create blocks. And it's solely to create the blocks, not necessarily permit a specific development or number of units. And a lot of the questions would be appropriately answered through the site plan approval process, including a traffic impact study. Because again, this is just to create a block, and there are different options for access that can be explored. It's similar sometimes when we look at certain uses that require a noise study. It's at the time of site plan when the details on HVAC and machinery are known to do a noise study. It would be similar on this block, that once we got a site plan, knew how many units, it's on the draft plan, it's shown as 8 to 16 units. And you can imagine, depending on the number of units, it'll change the findings of the traffic study. And so it would be a bit challenging for a transportation engineer to prepare a traffic study at this level of a block plan of subdivision. But I do, and subject to Heather's input, feel the appropriate Planning Act controls are in place to ensure that these matters are appropriately addressed and presented to council through the necessary upcoming Planning Act applications that would be required before any development. And I would note in the conditions, of course, that Conservation Authority approval will be required, and permits for any development on this block. I think that's, unless I can answer anything else, I'll turn my mute button on.
Okay. Well, do you certainly concur with that to get this to the next level, Heather, to be able to put more meat on the bones, we have to go through this step?
Yes, your worship, we do have to go through this step.
Okay. That in itself, I guess, has kind of changed my thinking on it. That it's a process, and this gets us to the next level where a lot of these specific terms and conditions can be negotiated on the property as to what's going to happen. Because I think if you add up the potential of how many units did Carolyn say could be in that block?
If I recall, I thought she said somewhere between, was it about 20?
8 and 16.
8 to
8
16.
8 to 16, so, my apologies, yes.
So if you went to kind of split that in the middle as 20, and the potential of people having 2 vehicles, that's certainly an increase in traffic on Douglas Street that that could be very concerning to the people that are living there. So was there any, okay, Angela?
I think with that being said, we could have maybe avoided this whole discussion and move this to the next process and take the next steps to look for alternatives. And it's definitely changed my thought process, I guess. And I will second Councillor Rail's motion to move this forward, and we'll put those recommendations in there, and we will hopefully have those studies move forward in as we move into the next steps. So hopefully we can get the ball rolling.
Yes, Bonnie?
Just in terms of the whole discussion about, you know, I'm just trying to quickly look over the conditions list, and is there any wording about this block in there right now? Is there a way for us to add some phrasing that describes the requirement to look at other options for access into and out of that block?
We would have to add it as an additional condition. So I would need to receive that direction from council to add it as an additional condition.
I would like to add that to the motion in whatever way, Jana, I need to do that, but adding a 14th condition that requires the proponent to look at other options for accessing Block 12.
Okay, so I've amended the recommendation. The recommendation is West Elgin Council hereby receives the report from Heather James regarding municipal conditions of draft plan. West Elgin Council recommends approval to Elgin County Approval Authority for the draft plan of subdivision, subject to an additional condition number 14 that requires the proponent to look at other options for accessing block number 12. And that West Elgin considers the repeal of bylaw 2020-85 and replaces it with the attached new bylaw, subject to the conditions as presented in the bylaw portion of the agenda, subject to the amended conditions.
Russ, you had a question?
Nope, Councillor Rowe was exactly thinking the same wavelengths, so it's already been gone over. Thank you, though.
So Bonnie, you moved that. Is anyone, I guess now we're at the point if anyone's willing to second that.
I already did.
Well, Angela is going to, is wanting to second the amended recommendation.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. We have any more questions as this moves forward? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation?
You're
That
carried.
is carried. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. That was
Thank you.
certainly something that's you know, very, very concerning, and we want to do this right. And so, being, I don't apologize for being a bit cautious. Next item is.
Right, next item, sir, we're on the committee and board reports.
Okay.
We have the committee of the whole recommendation.
Okay.
Any chance we could take a 5-minute break?
That would be a wonderful idea. I'm ready for a coffee. Okay, everybody, we'll take 5 and see you in a minute. See you in 5 minutes.
Come for a break, Ruth.
Who you got?
He said, did she and her go on a road tour? Yeah, they did, but she stopped away to get some ashes. like it better than McDonald's. Oh, yes. Yeah. I get my steps because my Fitbit tells me, so I get up and walk around.
In the circle.
Yeah, I'm in the circle. Oh.
Yay! It looks like the kids go to school Monday. Yay!
Kids are going to school Monday?
Looks like there's a thing that came out from public education. Fingers crossed this is accurate. It looks like the kids go to school on Monday. Let's hope this is accurate.
There was a Southwest Public Health teleconference this morning, but I guess, do I have the ability?
It says Thames Valley School Board and London District Catholic School Board on here.
What are we talking about?
Middlesex London Health Unit and Southwestern Public Health. The official announcement back to school on February the 1st.
Oh,
Yeah, CTV is announcing that too, so.
my children won't be going. That's a whole other topic.
Anyone else seeing that, or is it just me that's seeing this?
No, it's on CTV as well. I'm just reading it, so.
Okay.
There's no comment about secondary still staying online. It says all students, so. And all before and after childcare resumes.
Bonnie, I was actually just going to read the announcement. We got it. It just is just partway through the meeting. It does say secondary and elementary, the release from the school, the province. And so London, Middlesex, Southwestern Public Health, secondary and elementary schools will be returning as of in-person learning as of February 1. Yeah,
Okay.
which is good news. And we've been doing.
Okay, are we just missing Magda
It looks like it.
That one.
and Lee?
I'm still trying to get a picture on my screen. I've got a blank.
Oh, is
We can see you.
yeah.
Huh?
Hi, Ruth.
Ben, good morning,
Hi,
Ruth.
Ruth.
Hi, how are you all?
That happens every time I share a screen, doesn't it?
Yes.
Seems like it.
Mm,
We're gonna just try to get back on here.
okay, yeah. If you leave and try and get back on again, maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
So Jana, when I use mobile, I can see your shared screen. When I'm on my other internet, I can see shared screen.
So Cecil believes it's because of the quality of the internet connect, like how much broadband you actually get. So that could be what it is. You get more in your cellular, you get better coverage from your cellular, I guess.
Because I have a more up-to-date cell phone. It's a 5G.
Yeah, that's probably why. Richard, we can see you. Can you see us now?
Yes, I can. We're back.
Okay.
Okay.
So I just was explaining, I'd asked this question before of Cecil as to why this is happening. We think it's based on the amount of the broadband you get at a time, your broadband. So sorry about that. We'll try not to share screens too much. So, but
Okay.
the rest of us are back.
That's as soon as you try to put that map on, that's when I lost everything.
Yeah.
Okay, we have everybody back. I guess the committee and board reports, committee of the whole.
So we do have a recommendation that we need to pass.
Okay, mover and seconder for the recommendation for reconstruction of Rodney. Teresa, I was thinking you put your hand up, and Richard. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? Oh, Bonnie.
Oh, Bonnie.
Oh, I am unmuted, sorry. Yeah, I just need reminder as to where those funds are being pulled from.
I believe the 1.2 million for our share.
Yes.
That I have to have Magna answer that.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you go to your budget, under notes, I had listed federal gas tax. So the money is going, majority of the funds are coming out of our reserves from federal gas tax. So $858,000 is coming out of there. Then we had $250,000 saved in reserves for downtown improvement. And then the rest, the remaining balance of 91,000, almost 92,000 is coming out of tax rate stabilization reserves.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, and this recommendation is necessary for Elgin County to move forward with the project. So we have a mover and seconder, Teresa and Richard. Any more discussion on this item? All in favor? And that is carried. Back to my agenda here. Next item up is West Elgin Community Center Board of Management, the minutes. Any questions from those minutes? I guess at this time, even though we don't have a report, we did have an arena board meeting yesterday. Decision was made to recommend to council to continue on with the ice in the facility until the 10th of February to see what the province is going to do with the lockdown. If it ends on the 10th of February and there are favorable restrictions, then both figure skating and minor hockey felt they were in a position to carry on with their programs. So again, we felt that 2-week time frame would be reasonable to leave the ice in. If the conditions do not change after that date, then we will be reconvening an arena board meeting to probably come back with a recommendation that we shut the compressors down and take the ice out. Does that sum it up, Lee?
Yep, that sounds fair.
Any questions on that from anyone? Okay, I don't think there was anything else much from the arena board yesterday that we need to report on. That seems to be the big item. Okay, next item up is the Tri-County Water Board. Certainly 4 of us were at that meeting the other night. Anything in that you wish to discuss? Yes, Bonnie?
I guess just to update Richard that, one of the items that was reported on was the incoming electricity into the plant, which has been having some inconsistencies impacting the work of the equipment, and it's been assessed, and our recommendation from Aqua's engineer is that we continue to monitor it and work with Hydro One to find solutions to that. And the other thing was there was a discussion with regard to the best way to address the repairs needed at the West Lawrence standpipe. So those are the main issues that were discussed.
Thanks, Bonnie.
And one additional item on there, the agreement between the municipalities is kind of an ongoing process that we're all working on through Jana and our lawyer Amy Dale's leadership, and so at some point in time, hopefully we'll be able to have a good solid agreement that's going to work for everyone. Youth task team. What do you got there, Tress? Anything other than the minutes?
Just the minutes. They're having problems getting the youth together. They have 3 different Wednesday wellnesses that they're offering. So Wildflower Yoga is offering their services for free. Jennifer Blanchard with Pound Fitness is offering services free. And I can't remember the name of the facilitator for the Zumba. I want to say Sharon McDonald, I'm not sure, is offering another Wednesday. They've not had one sign up. And in speaking with the youth, they're extremely stressed. So the youth were thinking of writing a letter to the school board advocating for, they felt that there's a lot of talk about helping them, but not a lot of action. And youth also recognize that the teachers are a little stressed as well. So nothing really because of COVID is happening, and yet kind of felt that the youth felt that they're already on screens all day. I don't think they want to be a screen again, even if it's something fun or something enlightening in the evening again too. They're a little, sick of being in front of a screen. So that was about it. So they were just looking for options and way to reach out to each other in different ways that maybe would help them with their stress levels and different things going on, but not a lot going on. Kristen Monroe is happily expecting. So we're just waiting to see and implement the person that's taking over for her mat leave and go from there. So yeah, lots of community partners and people at the table. We're looking for more if anybody else is interested. And some of our youth is graduating and some have gotten jobs. So they're actively looking for more people and voices from the youth around the table. The rest of it's in the minutes, and there should be a new minutes coming out this week. So it'll be in the next agenda.
Okay. Any questions for Tress? Okay. Next item up is the accounts. I guess everyone's had the opportunity to review them. Recommendation that the mayor and treasurer are hereby authorized to sign payment voucher number 1A amounting to $860.23, a settlement of general road and water and arena accounts. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a mover and seconder. Moved by Tellier, seconded by Cammert. We got the money, Magna? We got the money. All in favor?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that is also carried. Correspondence, Elgin County highlights. Anything, anybody has any specific questions from the Elgin County highlights? Seeing none, Elgin County official plan update. That process is beginning, and certainly there will be probably a year of more things to come regarding the OP update in the county. Seeing no questions, Ministry of Natural Resources, Forestry, proposed regulations for compressing air, energy storage, and reservoirs. Any concerns regarding that? Seeing none, Township of Southwest Oxford photo radar. Any comments regarding that one? Bonnie?
I thought that ASCs were already approved for use in the province. I wasn't quite sure why Oxford had an issue with this. I went online just to check and see which communities were using them, and there are 3, and a list of other municipalities that have requested the use. So
I think it's an individual up to the municipality if they feel that that's what they want to do.
I wasn't quite sure either, but again, it's one of those things. It gets sent. It's not addressed to me, so.
Okay, moving on. Township of Larder Lakes municipal insurance costs. What's your pleasure there, Bonnie?
I mean, there's no question that municipal insurance rates are out of control. So I agree with them writing. I guess I wasn't exactly sure whether all of the information that was in that letter is accurate and whether there were more concrete steps this council could take to lobby for continual work on this issue. I know AMO and both AMO and Roma are working on this issue of insurance and joint and several liability and so forth, but yeah, I wasn't sure whether we wanted to support this letter or look at some other work that this council could be doing beyond what we're doing, which is looking for new insurers, and that may or may not help us.
Was there discussion at Roma about this, and is that the position we should take, is to let those organizations do their work, and hopefully they'll come back with some more concrete recommendations?
I don't recall any concrete steps recommended for individual councils to take. It seems as though there are insurers that are leaving the country. So, you know, in terms of finding competitive bids for insurance, that really is, I mean, what AMO is doing is trying to encourage those companies to stay. So yeah, there wasn't, I didn't pick up on anything specifically that individual councils could do.
I think the problem is bigger than, you know, something that we can do by supporting a letter. Tress?
Through the chair, yeah, I agree with Councillor Rowe. There wasn't a lot of talk about what councils could do to mitigate the increases, the astronomical increases for insurance for municipalities. But I do think even if we don't support this letter, a letter of our own, just to have our voices heard would be great. A little shocked at the amounts that different municipalities have increased to. And I can't remember right now, I don't have my note in front of me, but the council or the county council increase was astronomical as well. So I just think that maybe even to have our voice heard would be great. I don't know about staff time for that. I know they're middle of budget, but maybe even if we just did it after budget or sometime in the early spring, that would be something I'd be interested in, at least just having our interests out there, wondering what's going on with that. I mean, if the governing councils in Ontario and the province can do something about individual insurance for people, why can't they for municipalities just being carried on? it's just in a different form. That's how I view it. So I'd be interested in looking at to see if we can do a letter.
I'm sure, I mean, as you said, Magda's doing budget and stuff right now, but I'm sure we can do some research and come back with a report and a recommendation for you at a future meeting, if that works. Magda, are you?
Yeah, even if it's later, like much later, just to say something, I think it's important. I don't know what my fellow counselors feel.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Magda.
We can certainly do that for you. But just to, I would like to mention that when I had discussion with our insurance provider back in December, there's only 5 municipal insurance providers in Ontario. So as you can see, we are very limited when it comes to the insurance coverage. And I think, that's what triggers the price.
Yeah, your hands are tied, or everyone's hands are tied.
Mm-hmm.
Angela?
Insurance everywhere has gone up, whether it's commercial, individual, or in our case, municipal. And as Magda just brought up, there's a very small pool from which we can draw from. And my concern sending a letter is biting the hand that feeds us, because there is a really small pool from which we can pick from. And that's my hesitancy with wanting to send a letter when Magda has clarified my question is there's only 5 pools from which we can pick from. Do we want to be known as causing a problem? So I'm just kind of being the devil's advocate on that side.
Yeah, it's a situation that unfortunately you need insurance, and there's only one way of paying for the increase, and that unfortunately is part of raise in taxes that we have to pass to our residents. So as painful as that is, the alternatives are very, very few. Bonnie?
I would be happy if staff could continue to monitor the situation and work closely with Roma and AMO to lobby on our behalf on this issue.
Okay. That it for correspondence?
Yeah, I just want to double check. So you don't want us to report back on our findings, or do you want us to report back?
Well, I think it's something that we're aware of, and I think the best we can do right at the moment is just to be aware and monitor what's going on in the municipal insurance portfolio, and if there's a potential of should we be sending a letter off to Roma and AMO asking to advocate on our behalf, or they're already doing that?
It appears that they're doing it. How about I'll do some research what AMO and Roma are doing for the insurance industry, and we'll report back on that.
Okay.
That's probably better.
All right.
That would be good.
Okay, moving on. Next item is council inquiries. Do we have any notice of motion? Seeing none, statements and inquiries by councilors. Angela?
So I wanted to bring a matter forward and present it from council. So we have spent a great deal of time over the past 2 years moving this council forward to do communication with our residents, and us as councilors spend a great deal of time educating residents on through our social media pages, and staff spend a great deal of time educating residents using the municipal website and social media pages. But when it comes to the budget, I think that in this case, maybe we've kind of missed a bit of a step in educating residents. So I wanted to talk to council and see if we're receptive to taking a step back with the budget and putting out some kind of a survey and education process to educate the residents on capital items on the budget and get their feedback, so that it helps all of us make an educated decision on moving forward with the budget, so that, you know, we all know our residents are struggling and that these are tough economic times, and we can see the deficits that are going on with the province so that we can make these decisions. So I wanted to have a roundtable discussion and see what everybody thought regarding putting out some type of a question and survey. I do believe, Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, our website can do this kind of thing, and that we can put out just, they don't need to be complicated like some of the other budget surveys that, you know, you see online, and we can just ask some strategic questions to give us all feedback to help us make some decisions on the capital items. And, you know, if the restrictions continue, to help us decide with maybe some of the rec programming that's going to go forward, which again would affect the budget, and to help us move forward with some of the decisions that we need to make.
Our website does allow for, yeah, surveys and questions. Yes, or we could use even a Survey Monkey if you wanted something different. But yeah, a basic one. We can't do super complicated on our website, but we can do some pretty basic.
What's your pleasure, Bonnie?
I guess my initial thought is that this is what we were elected to do, is to take all of the information and make the very best decisions we can based on that information. I'm a little reluctant to ask people to list, for example, what would your priorities be in terms of capital projects, and then you know, for people to have all of the information to make those decisions, they essentially have to be sitting at these tables every day, and that is unlikely. Well, that being said, I question whether we would end up with a survey result that we could act on. I'm cautious about that, just because of the amount of information that's required for each capital project to be decided, and the years that we set out for capital projects and how those changes come about and grants available. There's just so much that we barely can keep up, let alone expecting a response from our citizens to be up to date. And you know, I worry about a survey coming back and then not being able to act upon it is my concern.
Any other comments? Yes, Tress?
Through the chair. So we've been really great about, I think, about going out to the citizens, asking them. Before COVID, we had our town halls. We even had the one for Seaside and such. Virtually. I think it's an awesome idea. I'm worried, the same as Councillor Rowe, that we're going to have things come back that we can't deliver on. I just know in speaking with residents, when they email or call, they'll say, we need to do this. And all great ideas, all ideas most of us around the table had before even becoming on council or from previous years on council. But to deliver it is so many facets and so many things behind it. And when you explain to residents that you need to do steps A through G to even think about getting to what they're suggesting, they go, oh, like there's so many barriers we have around this table that we have great ideas and things we can do, but we are bound by, well, it's usually monetary barriers, things that we just cannot do. So to put a survey out is awesome. I do truly love the idea, but I do truly see Councillor Rowe's point of view that, and I was thinking the same thing, that how are we going to deliver that? And we're going to look like we've let everybody down, and we can't do it. But really, it's just so many roadblocks that we have when we're trying to do things around this table that we can't do. Like one of my motions way back, notice of motions, was to do a dog park, because I had a lot of feedback. People wanted a dog park, and it's just not something that's materialized and can't do. Another one of my notice of motions was the garbage delivery for rural, and that has come about, and that's great. But there's just so many things along the way that, in staff time and council time, that we had to do to get there, and it just and the suppliers even. So yeah, it's an awesome idea, but I just don't see how we'd implement a lot of it. We'd have to be very particular with our wording and very particular what answers we can get, which would then limit it. So I don't know how broad it could be.
I think there's some misclarification. I'm talking about the capital items that are in this year's budget that we are thinking of going forward, not future items only. And I'm also talking about this year's rec programs and the specific items that are funding. So for example, the 2 electronic signs, the major capital purchases other than the Burnable Road that we have obviously approved. And then, you know, if the restrictions continue with the rec programming, for example, the council grants, for example, should we provide funds for the council grants or should we only allow free building usage? Things like that. I'm not talking about future items. That could be something we discuss at another time, whether we want to get into those strategic questions that other municipalities talk about. I'm just talking about specific focused things that we're talking about approving this year. Do those residents think that they are a priority right now, today, in today's economic environment?
Okay. Yes, Bonnie?
And again, I would say that we were hired as counselors to make the best decisions for our citizens when it came to budget and many other decisions. So I would not see value myself in asking about how we decide to spend citizens' money. On the other hand, I think there is some value in having some improved communication in terms of how a budget is created, what the steps are, what the rate and what the levy means, and what does it mean in terms of the bottom line for citizens. I think those are things that we could improve upon for sure.
And I think one of the things we can improve on is if they're, you know, in managing a corporation like this, certainly we have to take into consideration a lot of our staff's recommendations. They are on the front line. They see the wants and needs of their individual departments. So we do have to balance that into the overall mix. But I think we can do a better job of, when we do make decisions, that we can explain the rationale of why we needed to make that decision, and what are the benefits that are going to result from those decisions. You know, the communication with our ratepayers is something that we can always improve on, and I think it's a situation with individual council members, their responsibility as we go through the budget, and it's much more difficult in COVID than it's ever been before. But I think that's the opportunity for we as council members to the best of our ability, even though through the difficult times, is communicate with our residents more or less on a one-to-one basis to be able to gauge, are we on the right track, or do we need to rethink our position? And again, when it gets down to the budget, I've always liked to use the guiding principle that always look at it like you're writing the check. You put it in that context. Is it something that I would buy myself? Is it something that I feel is needed? And you know, applying that principle to it, sometimes you go, God, I don't think I can afford that, or I don't think that we need that, or the department head has not made the case that it's necessary. And those decisions, I think, as Councillor Rowe and Councillor Tellier say, those, you have to be immersed in that to be able to really determine whether it's something that's important to move forward with in any specific year. Tough job. Richard, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same lines as you, actually. I think if we put too much on, we'll be telling people, trying to explain to people so much why we can't do things. And you know, some of these things are almost above us. You know, we rely solely on our treasurer, or a lot on our treasurer, to know where these monies are coming from and to explain it to the public exactly, you know, what it's all about is pretty difficult. So, yeah, I think we should stay as we are.
And I think everyone sitting around the table here is in full recognition that, you know, through this COVID process, that we do have to be much more cautious in how we spend capital money. And in all honesty, I think you'd probably agree with me, Magda, that this isn't the year that it's going to be really, really difficult. I think 2022 is going to be more of a difficult year than 2021. And so keeping that in mind, we have gone through the first look at our budget, and I think there's lots of opportunity now. We've got another two more budget meetings coming up, Magda. I think we've got another 2 more meetings coming up that I know our scrutiny of this budget moving forward, everyone will have the opportunity to dive into it a little bit deeper and satisfy in their own minds that this is the proper way forward.
Sir, I'm wondering, Magda's PowerPoint, I don't have it on the budget page because that was the first draft of it. And I didn't want to mislead people, but it is available publicly. And Magda's PowerPoint was really, like, it was detailed. It said, this is how much it would affect the average property owner. This is how much, she broke it down quite a bit. Would council like that put on, even though it's not what is exactly happening? This was the first view. Would you like that PowerPoint put on the website under the budget area?
Well, my thinking on it is that, you know, you budgets, with my experience, are like throwing, you know, the first flush is like throwing the cat in the room. And then it's the responsibility of everybody sitting around the table is to tame that cat. And I think that's the way it works just about in every municipality, that initial budgets come in very, very high with a lot of wants and needs in it. And then over the course of us focusing on those needs and on those wants, that council in its wisdom, working with the staff, can pare that down to the essentials that we actually need to go forward with this year. And that's an ongoing process, and we're just, you know, the cat's in the room, so now it's our job to tame that kitty down.
Through the chair, I don't know if you ever owned a cat before, but they tame the human, so.
Well, there you go.
They train us.
Yeah.
So.
So it's, you know, even with the County of Elgin budget initially, I think I reported they were looking at a 3-point-some-odd%. That's been pared down significant. Now it's down under 3%, and so it's a process that everyone goes through when they're sitting on a municipal council. And I think the end goal is to provide the best service at the best price, and I don't think that we as council can do much more of that. And especially under COVID times, I think we all recognize the situation that's happening around us, and certainly that's something that we've never had to factor into our deliberations before. But I think everybody is in tune with that. You got a comment, Richard?
No, I don't. I'm trying to get the faces back on my screen again. It's just went up.
There you go. So how do we move on with this? I think that more information, I think, is good, but let's keep working towards putting this budget together in the most reasonable economic end game as we possibly can. And I think when we're over and done with, I think that we'll all be able to justify our actions. Anything else?
Meg, sorry, Bonnie has something?
Yeah. See, Bonnie?
No, only if we're finished with this discussion.
I think that we've come to a consensus that you know, all information that we can share with the public, make sure that we do that, make sure we do that always. And I don't know what more we could do. Do you want to move on to statements? And no, we did that one. Any more statements from councilors? Yes, Bonnie?
Sorry, trying to turn my darn phone off here.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I did want to report if I could have a few minutes to talk about Roma, which Councillor Tellier and myself just attended this week, and Tressa, you may have some additions, but I wanted to just raise 2 or 3 points that arose as I looked at the conference. It was very good, and I found that there were many, many current issues that I learned about. One of them was cannabis production sites, and there was a discussion about need for more government regulations. Many municipalities are finding that you know, yields are way over what their government licensing allows, so the government needs to have more regulations on the yield calculations. Security plans aren't being followed. Toxic materials are open to the air. They're not complying with zoning, planning, building permits locally. So lots of good conversation and recommendations moving forward on that. There was a lot of updates on the pandemic and vaccine rollout. Municipalities will be asked to provide buildings for vaccine centers and so forth, where people can be socially distanced and so on. So, so that is one thing that municipalities may be able to help with. And also, municipalities are encouraged to combat misinformation on vaccine hesitancy in whatever ways we can. And there was a link to the OMA site that I have yet to go to, but there may be some materials there that we can use on our website and Facebook feeds to improve the information our citizens have on the vaccine and the safety of it. Yes, there will be federal provincial COVID relief funding for 2021 as there was in 20, so that's good to hear. There will be and I guess this may be old news, I think that it was posted the first of the week, but there will be a new intake in the Municipal Modernization Fund. And so we will have to see whether we could be taking advantage of that. And the big thing that I wanted to raise was that there was so many references to broadband funding, both federally and provincially. And I know that we do have a county committee that is working on that on our behalf. I guess I would add to that I feel as though our municipality needs guidance on how we can tap into some of that funding, whether it be through a partnership locally or looking at some of our local ISPs and seeing how we can work with them. I know that Mayor McPhail had a hope that we could add some reserve funds into our budget to begin to have some financial support for a partnership to expand broadband. But I do think that we probably need some hands-on expertise to guide us locally, because I don't think we can count on the larger groups like SWIFT to answer our problems. I think we need to look at what we have locally and how we can expand on that. So those are just some of the highlights. Tressa, you might have other things you.
Jess, go ahead. Oh, she's got pages of stuff.
I have pages, but I had highlighted pages and I'm just looking for those at this moment, if you'll just indulge me to do that. I'm on the homeless committee for our area, as council knows, and so Steve Clark, Mr. Clark, had he's looking and wanting and thinking it'd be helpful as when people are released from mental health care to have a by name list, and then they can follow up and identify the issues, because a lot of those people are lost into the system, into oblivion basically. And supportive housing communities, he feels would be the key to managing issues, and he had different ideas of how to do that. I won't go into them because they're extensive. There was a lot of talk about gas tax and what happened with getting those monies and the public transit in the area from Minister Mulroney. There was just a lot of talk about broadband. Basically, if the heading wasn't Roma, it would be broadband, broadband, broadband. There's just a lot of talk about how we can get that to not just the northern rural communities, but communities like ours and out on Lake Huron and such that aren't fully widespread. They don't have all that. So in reading all that, I kind of wondered, and listening to all that, I kind of wondered, could we have a round table with companies in our area? What could we do there? I was speaking with Bell Tech, who was at my residence this week, and he claimed that they were going to do some satellite in the area for the same cost that they have the in-village, for everybody in our area would have coverage. So it wouldn't be astronomical like it is now. So that's coming in less than a year. He feels it's more about during COVID times and training the staff and the techs. So that was good news locally, but I don't know if we could have a discussion about what they have in the works. I mean, I didn't know about that. I don't know what people know about, but as Councillor Rose said, maybe something more locally we could have a discussion more instead of provincially or federally. See what those discussions would look like and where we could go from there. So yeah, it was a really good conference. Other than I don't know what Councillor Rowe felt, but being on a screen for 2 days straight, and I had 2 meetings, one Monday night and one Tuesday night. It was a little bit of little screen time exhaustive, but it was really great. I did miss the Sunday night roundtable though, but I know Councillor Rowe, you attended a Sunday night Zoom, but I missed that. But other than that, really extensive. So, and I believe we both talked about, Councillor Rowe and I, about maybe we could look into some sort of, I don't know what it would be, but the wording that we use, Councillor Rowe, but somebody that could look closer at grants and would know and when something is coming up that we could tap into a little more than exhausting our staff all the time with something like that. But maybe there's a grant for someone to look for grants. I don't know what the wording would be, but yeah, something along that lines, because there's a lot out there that I don't think always can be looked at, or we don't, like as counselors, I'm not sure exactly how to look into all that. So that would be great, other than through our staff, which is getting exhausted for them.
Yeah, I think it takes a special person to know about all of the grants and whether we qualify and whether to spend time on them or not, and how to qualify if we don't right now. And so I wonder if that is a recommendation from me anyway, for perhaps another discussion another time, that is there a consultant that would make good fiscal sense to try to help us get some of these grant funds? I mean, obviously writing the grants and working with the partners, the ISPs that we would work with and so on, that all takes a separate skill set that we maybe can't ask our staff to do.
Okay, any questions for Bonnie and Tress? Certainly, I want to, on behalf of council, thank you two for attending this conference. Certainly, it's a whole new concept and dynamic doing it virtually, and probably there's a lot of good information that will flow out over the course of the next number of months that as items come up that both of you have were immersed in somewhat at the conference, that you can share some information with us. We are having a connectivity meeting right after lunch. I think that there are some good recommendations coming out of that meeting this afternoon, that the committee finally is going to be making some recommendations to County Council that has some action plan in it. It was recommended at our last County Council meeting that a new position be created at the county as IT director, and that individual would be responsible for working with broadband and information technology across the county. One of the problems that I have found over the last number of years when it comes to broadband and the ISOs is that there is a cloak of secrecy over each and every one of them and what they are actually planning or what they're actually doing. So it's very difficult for municipalities to know exactly what is really happening within the municipal borders. So just quickly, one of the recommendations, I believe, is that Elgin County needs to do somewhat of a comprehensive mapping to be able to determine exactly where broadband is available and where it's not available. And certainly then that will give us a little indication on where we need to concentrate our efforts to increase the availability. So I'm kind of looking forward to the meeting this afternoon. It is broadcast live on Facebook if you would like to join in on the conversation. In fact, we do have a local ISO that's going to make a presentation as to what he feels some of the solutions could be towards improving broadband in Elgin County. So I think it's going to be a really, really good meeting. Anything else for where were we at? Statements?
Statements and inquiries. I think Magda does have something she would like to bring up.
Sure. Where are you, Magda? There you are.
So, Mr. Mayor, there's one more thing that I would like to bring to Council's attention, and it's the Economic Development Committee meetings. As you are well aware, we stopped meeting, Jenna, correct me if I'm wrong, back in November of 2019.
We've had meetings since then. Our last meeting was in February.
Last meeting was in February of 2020. And I would like to know whether council would like to resume those meetings or just leave it as status quo until we're past pandemic. That's going to affect our budget. I don't know if you had a chance to quickly scan through Economic Development Department, but there is no money allocated in that department, and it would be helpful to know what is the plan for 2020.
Did we not have $1,000 in that budget?
Yes, there's only $1,000 allocated, and we have $10,000 in reserves.
I think that's probably enough funding for the middle of this pandemic. One of the other initiatives that's happening through the service delivery review from at the county is discussions have began whether that Elgin County and the city of St. Thomas should be setting up a regional economic development corporation, much like they have in Essex and Windsor. Our head of economic development at the county has moved on to BC, took a position as a CAO in British Columbia, The consultants come back and said it was something that we should look at, and I think there'll be more information coming as to what economic development is going to look like in Elgin and St. Thomas, and maybe we just kind of sit pat for a little while and see where this pandemic is going to take us, so we can get back into some type of in-person meetings again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine.
What's your thoughts? Are we, Magna needs some direction. Do you just want to leave it as status quo for right now? Bonnie?
Yes, I think that we should leave what is in the reserve for now. We don't know how the county plans will evolve. I don't think we want to give up an economic development thrust locally, and potentially that committee could work with whatever new entity might evolve from the county to to strengthen our local economy through this committee. So I would say leave that little bit and leave the reserve, and see what happens at the county.
And I know, I suspect what Magna's trying to do is she's looking in the cracks and crevices down in the couch, trying to find nickels and dimes and anything that she can gather up to work through the budget here. Is from an economic development perspective, the $10,000 that's sitting in that account right now, is that something that maybe we could consider putting towards the electronic signs that we're contemplating in the budget?
So, Mr. Mayor, the funds for electronic signs are coming out of reserves. The ones that we received in 2019, we received $500,000 for efficiencies.
Okay.
And I think it is part of our efficiency. So the money basically is coming from NOD grant.
All right, so that's totally fine. But I think what Magna's trying to do is she's literally right down trying to find anything she can in the cushions. So if it's council's wishes to leave that $10,000 in the economic development fund, then you know where the money is, Magna, and we'll carry on under that premise.
Richard, I think, had a comment. Did you, Richard?
Richard?
No, I just thought we should leave as is for now.
Okay. There you go, Magna.
Okay, thank you.
Any other statements? I believe we were at.
Then we're on to
matters of urgency. I'm getting hungry. That's one that I've got at the forefront.
So we're on bylaws, sir.
Okay, we'll move to bylaws. We have bylaw number 2021-04, annual procurement bylaw, that recommendation of the bylaw.
Oh, sir, what are you looking? No, it's the procedural bylaw.
The procedural bylaw. Well, it's procedural. Yeah, did I not say that?
No, you said
procurement.
Procurement.
Okay, it started with a P. Amend the procedural bylaw recommendation to bylaw 2021-04 being a bylaw to amend the bylaw 2018-43, a bylaw to establish rules of procedure for the meeting of council committees and boards of the corporation of the municipality of West Elgin. We read it first, second, third, and final time. Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe. Seconded by Tallier. Oh, you got a question, Bonnie?
Bonnie.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, this essentially adds in the electronic meeting ability. Do we have any sense of whether that is going to be ongoing, or is this
it allows us to permanently do it if it's a wish of the committee or the council.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I have a hard time determining between a question and a vote. So maybe questions should be like this.
Okay, so now do you want to call
Let's figure out for a question? Okay, we have moved by Rowe.
I'll move that.
seconded by Talia. All in favor? And that is carried. Bylaw 2105, interim tax levy bylaw, recommendation that bylaw 2021-05 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for 2021 be read a first, second, third, and final time. Mover and seconder, moved by Cameron, seconded by Leeson. All in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2021-06 seesaw zoning provisional bylaw. Recommendation that the bylaw 2021-06 being a bylaw to amend the municipality of West Elgin's comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2015-36 for the property known as concession 14, part of lot 6, and repealed provisionally adopted bylaw of 2020-85 be read a first, second, and second time and provisional adoption. So we do not have the third reading of that bylaw yet. So that's where all the bits and pieces come. So do we have a mover and seconder for that bylaw?
Before we go, I want to explain. The reason we're not reading it the third time is we have to have the draft plan of subdivision before we will read it and approved by the county and all conditions before it is read a third time and comes into force and effect.
Question, Angela?
Jana, this doesn't need to be amended based on the amendments we made previous in.
The amendments were to the conditions of the draft plan of subdivision, not to the zoning. Nothing changed with the zoning.
Okay, but this is only the second. Okay.
And it's only the first and second reading, but this is just related to the use of the properties. It's the zoning, what can happen, and the fact that there has to be a site plan before block 13 gets developed, all of that. That's what this says. There has to be a public site plan and meeting. That's the big change from the original.
So move.
By Cameron, seconder by Leatham. All in favor? That is carried. Now to a confirming bylaw. Recommendation of bylaw 2021-07 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on January 28, 2021 be read a first, second, and third and final time. Mover and seconder. Moved by Rowe. Seconded by Tellier. All in favor? And that is carried. Adjournment. We all done? We're ready for adjournment?
11:56, sir.
Okay, the council of the municipality of West Elgin hereby adjourns at 11:56 to meet again at 9:30 on February 4th, 2021, or as a committee of the whole, and February 11th, 2020 as council or at the call of the chair. Mover and seconder. Moved by Leatham and seconded by Cameron. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, you guys all have a good day, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.